Hello, Watem here, and welcome once again to Umineko When Seagulls Cry. Let us continue.
ベアトリーチェが18人の中にいるのか、19人目なのか、それを知る鍵をね。
マリアは頑固だぜ。あいつ、へそを曲げるとなかなか機嫌を直さないからな。
大人の私より、子供のバトラ君の方が機嫌を直せる確率は高そうよ。
Yep, I brought that up last time.
彼女の機嫌が直ったら聞いてみて。遺産分配がどうのこうのって話には関心ないけど、こんな王道洋館ミステリーみたいなシチュエーションにはワクワクしちゃわない？マリアちゃんに手紙を渡した人物は一体誰なのか。知的好奇心がうずくわ。
Well, the witch did want intellectual night.
うんざりするような金の話に付き合わされても、ワクワクとは、実にタフなことだぜ。大人はすげえや。
I shrugged exasperatedly. But I did notice something. Kyrie noticed how dejected I was after overhearing our parents' turbulent discussion, and was probably trying to clear the air. At the very least, I'd recovered enough to voice my complaints. She wasn't my real mother, so I've never felt like calling her mum. But it did make me think that she's a real adult.
おうガキども、ここにいたのか。キリエも長え化粧直しじゃねえか。俺も次からは化粧をしてくることにするぜ。
Uh-huh.
ごめんなさい。女の化粧は長いのよ。どう？兄弟水入らずの話し合いは。
さぞや和気あいあいとしてるだろうよ。
Kiria's poked weak spots on my arm with her elbow.
一度頭を冷やそうってことで小休止さ。
Oh, so yeah, actually surprisingly peaceful and harmonious then, since they're not together.
こりゃ夜通しになりそうだぜ。泣けてくれ。
His way of talking hadn't changed, but he couldn't completely hide his fatigue. He couldn't say I was sympathetic, but he looked pitiful compared to his normal energetic self.
しかしひでえ雨だな。ゲストハウスに戻るのも嫌になるぜ。夏日姉さんが屋敷で泊まれるよう準備してくれたらしい。
What if the 19th person is hiding in the guest house?
どうする
3階になった時に考えてもいいんじゃない？部屋に戻る体力もなくなってたら、その時はお世話になりましょうよ。
そうだな。その時に考えりゃいいか。バトラーはどうする？
俺がいちゃお邪魔だろうからよ。気使って向こうに戻るぜ。
そうか。すぐ戻るのか。
さあな。一人で戻ったって寂しいしよ。子供全員で揃って帰ることにするぜ。
そうだな。そうするといい。それで、バトラー。お前、今夜はそうは簡単には寝ないだろう。
多分、いとこたちとおしゃべりしてるだろうからな。夜更かししそうな気配はあるぜ。それがどうかしたのかい？
そうか。もし、大人たちの会議が終わってお前がまだ起きてたら、ちょいと家族でしたい話があるんだ。
Oh?
な
Interesting.
んだよ。柄にもねえな。
Apparently, Kiria was thinking the same thing. What are you talking about? She asked him in a small voice. It looked like Kiria-san didn't have a clue what Dad meant either. It's perhaps to do with the suit?
キリエにも聞いてもらいたい話だ。後で話すから、今は聞くな。頼む。
I don't know anyone who neglects the concept of family as much as this old bastard. And now he's saying we're going to have a talk as a family. Both Kiria and I couldn't help but get wide-eyed.
そうビビった顔すんなよ。ビビりてえのは俺の方なんだ。何しろ。
At this point, he swallowed his words for an instant. Even though putting on airs of importance wasn't much like my dad.
気持ち悪いぜ、親父。 今家族は全員揃ってるじゃねえかよ。もったいぶらずに言えよ。
俺は多分今夜
Oh?
殺されるだろうな。
There was a huge crash of thunder. It must have been really close. Dad's expression, brightly illuminated by the lightning, was burned into my eyes. Dad's face, which always looked so sure of itself, which always wore a taunting expression, was strangely frail in a way I couldn't really explain. He was so worn out that he looked like a different person.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, sure, I'm thinking, this for Six Chosen and Sacrifices, but why does he think it's him?
何言ってんだよ、ガラでもね。
同感よ。どうしたの？急に弱気ね。あなたらしくもない。
俺も化粧直しに行ってくる。ついてくんなよ。
Dad turned away weakly. After that, only Kiryu and I were left, still wide-eyed.
なんだってんだ？今夜殺される？まさか、あの妙な手紙のせいで、親父ビビっちまったのか？
Maybe there's something in it that he knows about being referenced that others don't.
連続殺人者の映画の見過ぎだぜ。
Kiryu's-san didn't answer my light-hearted words and continued to stare at my dad as disappearing back.
バトラ君はルドルフさんに今話せと言ったら話さず立ち去った。みんなに話すことがあると言い出しながら答えなかった。どうして？チェス盤をひっくり返す。すると
話すと言っておきながら話せない矛盾。なんすかね。親父側から見ると何か見えてきますか？
Something that will be troublesome to talk about, and he needs his wits about him while he goes into this next round of talks, rather than being worn out before. Then?
ええ、見えるわよ。話したいことがある。でも自分から言い出す勇気がない。
Yeah, that's another possibility.
だから追ってきて俺に話しかけて聞き出してくれが正解ね。ついてくるなも逆の意味よ。ついてきて俺を問い詰めてくれが正解。まったく甘えん坊さんなんだから。
そういう推理でいいんすか？そんなんめちゃくちゃな。
名探偵や名刑事が男女の気持ちや心を推理できる？できないでしょ？異性の気持ちを探るのは何次元のトリックを暴くよりはるかに高度な技術なのよ。私に言わせれば名作推理小説より恋愛小説の方がよっぽど難解なミステリーなんだから。
I see.
はあ、そういうもんすかね。
私はあの甘えん坊さんと一緒にいるわ。普段は虚勢を張ってるけど、今夜はかなりの激論で疲れ切ってる。誰かに寄りかかりたい気持ちなんでしょうね。それに応えるのがパートナーの役目よ。
はあ、そりゃお熱いことで。じゃあ、うちのクソ親父の世話をよろしく頼みますよ。
ええ、任せておいて。
I called out to Kiryu as departing back.
え？何？
いや、ありがとよって。おかげで、陰鬱な気分がだいぶ晴れたぜ。
ならよかった。コミュニケーションは大事ね。
After answering with a wink, Kiryu's-san followed after Dad. Natsuhi could be found in a dimly lit hallway. Now and then, the thunder would crash, but this had no effect on Natsuhi's expression. She looked completely worn out. The discussion that had just taken place between the relatives in the dining hall was repeating itself inside Natsuhi's mind. She believes that someone else is behind it. probably, Beatrice had proclaimed that in addition to the gold, all of the inheritance and property of the Ishiramiya family would be given to the person who could solve the riddle. In other words, she planned to undermine the absolute guarantee that Kraus, as the oldest brother, had to succeed the family head. Originally, the other siblings had absolutely no chance to inherit the headship. To them, this proposal by Beatrice was extremely desirable. It was obvious that they would accept it. There was no need to play some clumsy detective game. Natsuhi knew that this so-called 19th person, Beatrice, couldn't exist. Naturally, Beatrice was nothing more than a fictional character used to pass on the message that Kinzo had written himself. As proof, Kinzo had remained stubbornly neutral as to that letter's authenticity. He was completely ignoring these reckless claims that he shouldn't be able to ignore, that he had given up the head's ring. In short, Kinzo had wordlessly admitted that the letter held his own message. No. Most likely one of the servants had given Maria the letter. Kinzo had probably worked out an elaborate plan where the dress from the portrait would be prepared. And someone, probably Shannon, would be made to wear it and deliver the letter under the umbrella. By doing that, he could make it seem like the witch from the portrait actually existed. No, if anything, that alone was proof that Kinzo was behind all this. In that case, it was the same as Kinzo trying to butt in on the siblings' private discussion of the inheritance after his death. You know, I think there's a thing called a will. Yeah, anyway. Then Kinzo, by announcing that he'd give everything to the person who solved the riddle, could weaken Kraus's overwhelming advantage. Now it was certain. Kinzo had eavesdropped on the siblings' discussion in the parlour earlier that day. I mean, yes. But this is unrelated. So he had known how Kraus had staved off the attack by the other three, and to make the scales of battle go back into the balance, he had sent out this strange letter, which benefited Kraus's rivals. He was trying to push this crazy theory so that Rosa, who had a weak position among the siblings because of her age, would join with Eva and Rudolph. Then, with a 3-to-1 advantage, they'd be able to overwhelm Kraus yet again and make their ridiculous theories get accepted by force. And by doing that, he gave them the power to resettle what had once been a nearly decided conflict. They had now started repeatedly pressing Kraus to pay them a large amount of money, using the condition that all the siblings would guarantee Kraus's position as a successor. Talk about advance payments as being brought up again despite having been rejected once. Of course, even without the story about the hidden gold, the Ishiramiya family store of wealth was vast. The store of wealth alone was more than enough. Even if the hidden gold was buried forever along with Kinzo's death, there would be more than enough to satisfy. Therefore, even if they weren't that interested in the gold itself, Kinzo had managed to instill the lifelong fear that, on the off chance that someone found the gold, that person would be granted the headship. This kind of Achilles heel would definitely be taken advantage of by someone, sooner or later. The only person with this fatal weakness was the successor, Kraus. The other siblings had found. No, they had been told by Kinzo about something that only Kraus could lose. They had thoroughly taken advantage of that. Natsuhi, as Kraus's only ally in this painful position, and as his wife, yes, wanted to fight alongside him. She kept trying to explain to him that the existence of the gold itself was a farce. There was no need for him to compromise. Kraus had always told Natsuhi. He had told all the siblings. He always said that the hidden gold was nothing more than an illusion created by Kinzo. Therefore, Natsuhi had believed it as his wife and had supported her husband on that foundation. Even so, Natsuhi's words didn't reach Kraus. Even though Natsuhi had fought so hard and had lent all of her strength, he continued to fight by himself and was trying to compromise with the other 3 siblings. Natsuhi sadly and weakly wondered why she could not be of use to him, and then started getting angry. It had happened when everyone decided to take a short break to cool their heads. Natsuhi had flared up against Kraus. Enraged, she had asked why she could not be useful to him. He had then told her that she wanted to talk about something, and invited her into a room that she was normally not allowed to enter. That room had been sealed with a heavy-looking padlock. Just looking at it had given her an uncomfortable feeling. Oh?
他の3人の言うことも、ベアトリーチェを名乗る不審人物の言うことも、何も気にかけることはありません。黄金など所詮はお父様が生み出したまやかし。それを見つけられることなどあるわけがない。あなたが跡継ぎであることは盤石です。何を恐れることがあるのです。
Kraus removed the padlock on the door. He then motioned for Natsuhi to enter.
入りたまえ。
I was about to say, he's being quiet and for some reason, maybe he's trying to sneak in. And like, well, not so much sneak in, he has permission probably, with the keys and all, but probably not let anyone else know that he's gone in, maybe. But no, then he said enter.
何ですか？
見せたいものがある。君に初めて見せるものだ。
Natsuhi timidly opened the door with a dubious expression on her face. Does he have, like, a single ingot or something of gold? Maybe. It was pitch black. She searched for a switch to turn on the light, but since this was her first time in the room, she didn't know where it was. Kraus entered behind her, pushing her in. When he closed the door before turning on the lights, the two were swallowed up by the darkness. Only the sound of Kraus locking the door rang out through the dark.
これは何事ですか？
Murdering her?
明かりは？
今つける。待ちたまえ。
Just as he said, when Kraus pushed a switch on the wall, a flickering light turned on and lit up the room.
それは？
Natsuhi had her breath taken away. The room had no windows, and at a glance it appeared to be empty. In the middle of the room, a small round table had been set, and the lights brightened only that table, as if it were the leading part in the play. On top of the table, a red tablecloth of elaborate design had been set out, covered with dust. And on top of that, something about the size of a grown man's arm had been set down there. Is it perhaps a grown man's arm? That something took Natsuhi's breath away. Oh, I was right with a single...
凄まじい純度を持つ黄金のインゴットだよ。
I was right with a single gold ingot. Unfortunately, not right on it being a grown man's arm.
こいつがなければ誰も黄金伝説を信じはしなかった。
It was an ingot of solid gold. Even in the faint light, it sparkled with a noble and dignified glint.
こいつはまともなインゴットじゃない。このインゴットを鋳造したのが国内なのか国外なのか、それすらも私にはわからないんだ。
It took a high level of skill to make the purest of solid gold ingots. And in order to verify that purity, it was standard to have the original foundry and the name of the bank that guaranteed it imprinted on the gold. However, this ingot did not have that kind of seal. This mysterious gold power had come from an unknown foundry.
ここを見たまえ。怯えることはない。こいつはただの金塊だ。
Natsuhi, following Kraus's words, timidly approached the ingot.
そこだ。
Kraus pointed at the surface of the ingot. It has the family crest. Maybe? Natsuhi concentrated on that section. Right there was a thin imprint of a one-winged eagle crest. Natsuhi's breath was taken away once again.
そうだよ。これこそが親父がベアトリーチェに与えられたといい、保証人のマルソーの会長に任意で一つを抜き取らせて持ち帰らせ、財界のフィクサーたちを信用させたという伝説のインゴットなのだよ。
Yeah, so he had confirmation that the gold was real, but very much doesn't want to share that
方々
information.
に手を尽くして私が見つけた。他の兄弟たちより早くね。
そんな。じゃあお父様の黄金伝説は？
Real.
実在する。
To deceive your enemies first, you have to deceive your allies.
後ろ宮金蔵が授けられたベアトリーチェの黄金は実在するのだよ。
そんな。本当にあるなんて。
Natsuhi was shocked. Kraus had already said that Kinza's gold was just a fabrication. so she had believed it as his wife. However, the reality was different. Since he held definite proof, he had been more certain than any of the other siblings that the legend of the gold was true. Because of this, Kraus was deeply frightened at the possibility that someone other than himself would find the gold he'd failed to find, costing him everything. But to Natsuhi, this truth was more than enough to split open her heart. She had thought that, as Kraus's wife, she should be his closest confidant, which is why she had selflessly supported him. Except she does rush into things more. So perhaps worried that she would reveal it, which would cost him his advantage on that front. And yet he had hid this fact from her until today. And by her being actually rushing forwards into it with the belief that it doesn't exist, actually helps even more. Because it's authentic. Yeah.
そこまでに私はあなたの信頼に足りないというのですか。
そういうつもりはない。話す必要がなかっただけだ。
あなたにとっては妻はその程度のものなのですか。
落ち着きたまえ。劇場にすぐ駆られるのは君の悪い癖だ。
あなたがそうさせてるんじゃないですか。私は後宮家に嫁ぎ、今日まであなたの妻として仕えてきました。
And you've been supporting him by being very convinced that the gold doesn't exist.
あなたのために生まれた家を捨て、身も心も捧げてお仕えしてきました。その報いがこれなんですか。そんなことって。
Are we perhaps going to get what's his name? Eva and Hideyoshi's conversation next? So going through all the spouses. Kraus grimaced, looking annoyed. His expression effectively communicated how much he disliked this part of Natsuhi, even if he didn't say it out loud.
私はもうあなたの力になれそうもありません。
Again, you're leaping to conclusions very quickly.
それでいい。
That's not the right answer.
兄弟のトラブルを私が自分の力で解決する。
Yep, Kraus, you're also to blame.
君の力は借りんよ。
違います。これは後宮家のトラブルです。確かに私にはこの身に家紋を刻むことが許されていません。でもあなたの妻です。なのに私には力添えする資格もないのですか。あなた。
君を思えばこそあえて関わらせなかったのだ。これ以上は頭痛に障るだろう。君は今夜はこれで休みたまえ。兄弟の話は兄弟でつける。
It's very condescending.
君は関係ない。それだけだ。
A dull headache tormented Natsuhi. No matter what medicine she took, no matter what scents she burned, it wouldn't heal. In fact, simply wandering alone through the dark corridors and listening to the sound of her own seemed to be a better cure. The way she's acting, I feel like maybe she's going to be one of the first 6. And maybe Natsuhi. But I was never Ushiramiya Natsuhi. I have been despised and treated as a borrowed one, and insulted when I couldn't even fulfill that role. Even so, I have tried to properly perform my duties as a wife. But even now, even my husband has rejected me. I've done my best raising my daughter, as if it were the last job left to me. However, I've had no release from my anger and sadness, and they've caused me to subconsciously strain that relationship too. Because I've been excessively strict in Jessica's education, she dislikes me thoroughly. She despises me for having no interest in anything but grades. There is no longer anything I can do for the Ishiramiya family. No. That's no good. Despite it all, I must help my husband and beat back the schemes of the other greedy siblings. The family head won't be around much longer. Eventually, Kraus will succeed the house. The next successor will be Jessica. Strictly speaking, the man who enters the family by marrying Jessica will become the next head, but it all comes to the same thing. I have to make Jessica an excellent successor, whom everyone will accept as worthy to take over the Ushiromiya family. In the days to come, that greedy Ushiromiya Eva will probably be plotting to find some fault with the main family. And if it all goes as she plans, Jessica will be dragged down from succession, with George set up in her place. It is regrettable, but George is a man, and even more, has matured as a person. Compared to Jessica, who is right in the middle of her rebellious period, and whose grades are slightly below average, it can be seen at a glance who is more fit to succeed the head. So in order to secure Jessica's position, I need to turn her into an excellent person. After doing that, I want to find her an excellent husband, worthy of the excellent person she will have become. A wonderful man who will truly accept Jessica and stay with her through all of life's joys and sorrows. Was Natsuhi trying to entrust her daughter with fulfilling some desire of her own? Natsuhi thought back to the days when she had no choice but to marry into the Ushiromiya family, because of that unavoidable fate. She had tried to block that from her memory. She had consciously forgotten it, and had actively attended to the life she had been given as Ushiromiya Natsuhi. And in doing, she had built up a new life. But, just now, I felt like all of that had been casually rejected.
何を考えて生きていけばいいのか。
So in terms of the first 6, it won't be any of the cousins. Maybe one from the sibling of the spouses. Then that takes too many away from the servants, I feel. There's going to be some of the servants, but not all. Yeah, I think Nanjo's a pretty good shot to dying. The first 6, I'm sorry. And yeah, the way things are currently going, it feels like Natsuhi will die. The glass was just cool thanks to the raindrops beating against it, but somehow refreshing, even though it should have been emotionless. Right then it seemed to be the only thing that could understand Natsuhi. At that point, even if someone had appeared, Natsuhi didn't intend to pay any attention to them. But she did pay attention, because it was her beloved daughter.
母さんか。なんだよ、こんなところに。幽霊かと思ったぜ。
Just like always, her words are rough and not at all like a girl's. Instinctively, words would be close to Natsuhi's throat. However, their strength gave out, and they didn't escape her lips.
ジェシカ、ごめんね。母さんは頭痛がひどいの。そっとしといてくれる？そう。
Jessica was seeing her mother in a position of feebleness for the first time, so she was considerably disconcerted. Until just now, she'd been filled with contempt for all the parents, including her mother. But now, those feelings had been completely swept away. Her mother's utterly exhausted face had wiped them all out. In its place, the words George had told her floated back up in her mind. Our parents are doing their best in their own way. And because their families are counting on them, they can't afford to keep everything pleasant, and have a heavy responsibility to fight. Maybe her mother had been standing around in this dimly lit hallway, because no one had tried to understand that in her. Jessica hated her mother, so she had no intention of speaking kindly to Natsuhi just because she was looking a bit frail. So when she attempted to speak kindly to her mother anyway, she had to clench her fist and gather up the words from deep in her heart.
ずいぶん立て込んだ話をしてるようじゃん。
She sounds so awkward in it.
お前には関係あります。よそへ行っていなさい。頭痛ひどい？私、 薬もらってこようか。構わないで結構です。お願いだから一人きりにして。
Natsuhi wasn't being cold. She just wanted her daughter to go far away so that she wouldn't have to bump against Natsuhi's own short temper. But there was no chance that Jessica would realise this. Jessica hung her head, looking sad. Seeing that expression, Natsuhi recognised the kindness that Jessica was trying to muster. She gave her head a small shake to drive away her own unkind feelings.
じゃあ私行くよ。大人の邪魔にならないようにいとこたちと一緒にいるから。じゃあお待ちなさい。
I feel like we haven't seen her smile like that. Maybe early on actually with the tea, I can't remember. She called Jessica, who was trying to leave and knocked lonely, to a stop.
何？気遣いをありがとう。お前を残して寝込むわけにはいきません。よせよ。演技でもないぜ。心配をかけました。もう大丈夫です。私は行きます。
If I let my daughter see me this feeble any longer, I'll only make her even feel more uneasy. With that thought in mind, Natsuhi left Jessica with words of gratitude and made to depart. But this time Jessica called out to her mother's back. Natsuhi stopped and turned around, asking what business Jessica had with her. But Jessica herself didn't know why she'd stopped her mother, and for a while she smiled wryly, muttering to herself as she hesitated over what to say. She was poking around in her pocket when her hand touched something, and she took it out.
あのさ、母さん、私さ、今日お守りもらったんだよ。なんだっけな、魔除けだったっけ？確かそのドアノブにぶら下げてるといいんだっけ？忘れちまったぜ。私が持ってても仕方ないし、母さんにあげるよ。
It was the scorpion charm that Maria had given her on the beach. Although she'd heard of its various effects for Maria, Jessica's mind had gone blank, and she was just barely able to say even that much. Jessica, thinking that her mother probably wouldn't accept it anyway, immediately drew back the hand she had stuck out, grasping the charm. So when Natsuhi came back to take it, she was extremely shocked.
これは何かの景品？まあその私も多分そうだろうと思ってるけどよ。こんなおもちゃみたいなお守りじゃご利益は期待できねえよな。
But her mother took the charm from where she grasped it in her hand.
ありがとう。大切にします。ジェシカには今度私が子供の頃大切にしていたお守りを代わりにあげましょう。
I feel like maybe this is a flag that you won't actually end up giving it to her.
別にそんなつもりで渡すんじゃないぜ。でもまあどうしてもって言うなら。では私はもう休みます。頭痛がひどいので、ジェシカもあまり夜更かしをしすぎないように。うん。
Natsuhi put the charm in her pocket and turned away. She then disappeared into the dark hall. Scene change, I'm guessing? I'm gonna guess George's parents. And then after that I'm gonna guess that...
やっぱり明日も丸一日こんな天気みたいだね。
I'm gonna guess after that it's gonna be the cousins meeting up and then going to the guest house. But before I confirm or deny that idea, I'm going to end it here for today. And I'll just skip through. Okay, no new tips, not surprised. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know any feedback you have in the comments. And until next time, see ya.